The instability created in Europe by the First World War set the stage for another international conflict, World War II, which broke out 2 decades later and would prove even more devastating. Rising to power in an economically and politically unstable Germany, Adolf Hitler and his National Socialists rearmed the nation and signed strategic treaties with Italy and Japan to further his ambitions of world domination. Hitler's invasion of Poland in September 1939 drove Great Britain and France to declare war on Germany, and World War II had begun. Over the next 6 years, the conflict would take more lives and destroy more land and property around the globe than any previous war. Among the estimated 45 to 60 million people killed were 6 million Jews more.
Pearl Harbor happened on December the 7th, 1941. And what happened was that the Americans had wanted to get into a war because they wanted to fight Germany, and they were mad at them. They at that time thought about the Chinese were their friends, and they didn't like the Japanese. So they said, how can we then we need Japan to attack us, so that because if not, the people would say, well, you have to go to Congress and you have to get permission to make it to fight with the Japanese, and they haven't done anything to us and we haven't done anything to them. So now, what happened was the United States started doing things to Japan. I forget what it was. They cut off their oil from one place so they didn't have enough oil. They started cutting off things to them. So the Japanese, to survive, had to fight the Americans. What I don't see anymore was they made life so uncomfortable for the Japanese, and then they found out that the Japanese would attack them under certain circumstances. So they created a situation so that the Japanese would attack them. And what they did is they put all their ships in Pearl Harbor. But there was a lot of misinformation. I remember one of them very clearly. They said, well, the Japanese won't attack you because with their slanted eyes they can't see. Yeah. So the Japanese started in, but the United States didn't have intelligence. We didn't have satellites, we didn't have anything in those days. So the Japanese went out in secret, but they had an aircraft carrier and they had a battleship. And the Americans put everything in Pearl Harbor. They said that way the Japanese will make a big strike and then we can declare war against Japan. They didn't count on the fact that the Japanese had good ships, great pilots, and aircraft carriers. And so when the Japanese came in and attacked, they literally wiped out the Americans. They came in, dropped bombs on them, and they beat the hell out of the States. And then what they did is they dropped the bombs and they left. They should have, what the Japanese should have done is stayed there and attack and taken over Hawaii, but they didn't. They just came in, they made an attack to wipe out, to hurt the American Navy as much as they could. Now, why that was the Japanese, why I know a lot about that is I was in the Air Force, and in those days there wasn't a Navy Air Force, there was Army Air Force, it was just an Air Force. So they beat the hell out of us there.
After this part of the interview, Joe Stewart said that he had found out that Hitler had been exterminating people that were not from the Aryan race. This only made him fight harder. Why? Because he believed that Jewish people and that black people and that homosexuals had the same right to live as the Aryan race. He also said that he had helped create some gases that helped exterminate the Germans, and he had learned to manipulate the atomic bomb. Joe Stewart was a very brave man. He fought for his country, he fought for his people, but most of all, he fought for what he believed in.
That the Second World War was an atrocious event that marks history in many ways. In our opinion, no race is superior than other, and no one should have suffered the way millions of people, especially Jews, suffered during the World War II. The extermination of the supposedly inferior race was shocking, but thanks to the Allies' intervention, many managed to survive.
World War II finally came to an end on the 8th of May of 1945, when Adolf Hitler had committed suicide. News quickly spread about the death of Adolf Hitler, and the guns fell silent. Winston Churchill, the then Prime Minister, announced victory in Europe. Today, we celebrate VE Day, which symbolizes the victory in Europe celebrating the end of World War II on 8th May of 1945. Street parties were held in every street throughout the United Kingdom and Europe, and to finally welcome home the brave men and women.